All right, welcome back, everybody. If you're on the stream, this is now like we're not talking about days, we're talking about this is almost hour three of the stream. One more episode, and then that's gonna be it because I've been at it for quite a while. If you're watching these on YouTube, um, I'm doing basically three episodes back to back. I've lost count. I think this is 48. It should be season one, episode 48. Check the title to be sure. Um, Pretty positive. Anyway, so I closed the previous stream, and because I'm doing them back to back, I'm not really doing Q&A. Not that it's the kind of stuff that would have a lot of Q&A probably. But there was a question towards the end of it, which was where was it? Someone was asking about the idea of using a matrix array, and I'm saying someone, I know who it is, but I don't like repeating names of people attending. Anyway, someone was asking about. I lost it in the chat. Someone was asking about what I said, which is normally what I would prefer to do. I don't know exactly why I went with this. Probably because it was quicker to do and simpler, and I didn't want to write the attribute line in Mel. Normally, I would recommend that instead of adding hierarchies here, you add a matrix array attribute and you work with globals, right? And in fact, before, I think in some cases we might have had to extract the word space from these or whatever. Like, anyway, it doesn't really matter. You can build. You can add. Sorry, you can add an attribute to these. You'll end up in extra attributes. It's a matrix array, and nothing says that it can be multiple matrices in local space, in the space of the parent, um, or the global ones, right? You could even add both, so there's no real advantage to doing something like this that you wouldn't have if you did something like this somewhere here, in the controls or wherever. Then add the attributes to the output and connect the individual matrices and transforms that you want to push out of the output boundary connected in there. Now, there was one question, which is a pretty good question, that is, how does it compare performance wise? So there's something that's going to happen. Like if you only have one output and you put all of your attributes in there, and for complex components, your output might amount to, a dozen parts or more than that, and some of them might be arrays. Like the output for a tail or the output for a spine for something that might need to have outputs for like saddles being bound to parts of it. Like it can get pretty beefy, and what that does, because it's a DAG node and it has all attributes on it, it will choke the graph. So you will choke parallelism out of the graph. Now, the way things get split in components and the components go one after the other and all of that, you're not losing a ton actually like in actuality for a complex enough rig. That choke point not gonna be super bad, but it is there. And for a very central, very early component, especially if you bring it to a certain degree of complexity, so this is true for the spine, less so for other things, that choke point might cost you. Now, with all of that said, even like if you don't do these, there's no reason. That is why like we let names and we look at the ending thing in here. There is no reason whatsoever why you couldn't have multiple outputs, right? Same, exactly the same thing as we've just done with this, where that's where you iterate the children. We already allow for it. So long as you call it underscore output or, multiple objects respect that, you can split your attributes over several DAG nodes. And that's going to free up, that's going to unchoke the graph a little bit. So if you choke it by having just one output, then once you find what other components like receive what attributes from that, you can split based on that rationale, if you will. Hopefully this makes sense. So the answer is the performance loss is actually, it does exist, it is there, because you are choking the graph, like you're choking opportunities for parallelism. in actuality, it's not that severe. If you bump into a case where it is severe, you can still attenuate it or completely eliminate it by spreading those attributes over multiple nodes. And that's the end of the story. So there you go, that's that answer. Now, at the end of the last episode, a few minutes ago on the stream, what I was actually talking about is like, all right, we got, input and output, we're good. One of the reasons, we still want inputs and outputs, but one of the reasons why we wanted inputs and outputs, I forgot about something, was that, and this is where the blackboard comes back in, I guess, we need to find a bunch of nodes, and I forgot. Ooh. Okay, I hope I do not love that. I did something and I don't know what I did. Is it crashing? No. But I lost my alt navigation. This is very worrying. Okay, now it's back. So what we want, what we're doing, like all that busy work, was because if you get the output and if you get all controls, so all of the edges, over here in the guide, like you wouldn't want to export the guide, right? You would just outright delete the guide, and we do have that in the de-guiding tools, but we'll get to that. But and if you have an input, everything that makes your rig is gonna be contained between input and output and the controls. So here's what is actually happening, and I think I've mentioned these before. But you have an input boundary and you have a bunch of controls, right? And the way we've been working, the way we recommend you work, is that then you have an output boundary and you will have, like, at some point somebody in the YouTube comments was asking, like, why do you have the form in here? Like, yeah, now that you've moved the form stuff to the bindings, it makes more sense. The bindings give you the whole rig. The form in here can still have a point sometimes, but we'll get to it. It simplifies some other operations at the cost of performance. And, and you have this deformation stuff. So this deformation stuff will go out to the bindings. So for now, we're gonna ignore it completely. This output stuff will go out to other components. So that's your cross component stuff. This input, we said, should only really receive from other components. So that's cross component again. And control ideally should only receive from the animators, so function curves and possibly tools. So this is your animator, right? Everything that your rig is doing, all the nodes that are doing things, all the magic, right? All of it, you might have multiple controls and all of that, is actually gonna be happening in here, right? This is the guts of your rigs, the mechanical functionality of it. Then you might have some stuff that is only used for deformation. Let's pick something different color-wise. This is maybe only the deformation needs it, and you might have DAG items, you might have DG nodes, whatever. But yeah, that's gonna be in here. So if for a moment we ignore this part, if you have, and we won't need this, I'm not gonna do it right now, but it's to explain what I was about to do before I remember that we were actually extra diligent. If you grab, and you do need this stuff to export anyway, we just want to segregate it differently. If you were to grab the output and then walk all the outputs, right? So the fact that it's multiple objects or one or a hierarchy, it does not matter, okay? If you were to grab all ports for all nodes that represent the output and walk them backwards until you encounter something that is a control or is an input, and then you stop, okay? You're going to encounter a bunch of nodes. Now, if you've done things properly, you should never encounter something that is part of another component or anything like that, right? You only walk the guts of your rig. More importantly, if you have trailing nodes, like something that you forgot and is now dangling here, because you're walking backwards that way, you're gonna be visiting this node and this node and this node and this node and so on. Like, you're basically doing what a graph pool does, and this node doesn't get visited because it's not connected. So that's that branch. You want to prune it effectively. You're not gonna visit it. You're not gonna export it. So this kind of operation, knowing the input and output, even like we won't use them for export, which I thought we would have needed, but I'll get to that. Like, it's still very good to be able to do that, and doing things like walking the ports and finding the nodes. Then the other thing that you can do is you can also take the input and the controls and walk forwards all of the DG nodes. The DAG nodes have implicit kind of inheritance of transforms and so on, so they all contribute. And you might find that in that walk, you will actually visit these. So if you run a difference and you go like, hey, when I walk backwards, what did I get? Then you walk forward and you go, when I walk forwards, what did I get? If there's a difference, you also know that those are your dev branches. So you can generate warnings for users and stuff like that. More importantly, again, in the same process, if you first walk backwards, right? Then you walk forwards, you will also encounter these nodes, which are the ones going out to the bindings, okay? This part, differentiated with these, right? So long as it goes to somewhere and not, it doesn't dead end like this one. This is the bindings part that you want to like stash away. This is what your skinning operator or stuff like that is probably gonna be like. Because those go out to the mesh and so on, they don't go out to the cross-component output that we've discussed. So that is how, by pure rules, in a very functional manner, if you have input and outputs and you've respected some rules, you can actually procedurally isolate parts of the graph. So, chat, if anybody's still awake, because I know like some people were saying, they're watching while they're at work, kind of background noise thing. Does this make sense? It's the brief explanation. We're not going to exploit these properties just yet, but we might not even do it this season. It actually gets pretty complex to tool for these properly, but, food for thought, some inspiration. This is some of the stuff you can do when you have strong standards. Now, what I thought we would have needed to do was doing that to grab these nodes to export as part of the rig, but we don't, because I remember that as we were working, we've already chosen to do containering. So we do not have that problem. And this is something that I was using during the exporting as well. I just forgot I was doing it. It's very convenient that we are. So we've already done something to categorize all the nodes that we want. So if this is a leg, or like this is a spine, this is a god node, and this is a leg, or whatever it is, each of them also has a container, right? And this container actually contains all the nodes that we're using for each of them. All right? So we don't really need to walk the graph both ways or do tricky things to find what makes a rig, because these containers should only contain puppety things, and they should not contain things for the bindings or for the geometry. They should only contain control rig things. Is that true? I don't remember. I'm sorry. We're gonna find out, but we're gonna assume that it is. So let's see very quickly. Does hopefully that still makes sense for everybody. And if that is true, we're gonna assume that it's true, right? And if that is true, we're good to go. We just need to make sure that we can find the containers. If it is not true, then we could write scripts to reconform things so that the containers are true. Now, when you select a container, and this is something I don't love, Maya will select the container and the root of the container if you specified one, which we have. So in the asset attributes, publish asset, publish nodes, there you go, parent, like component. So we've been extra good, right? And we've also published the actual controls, which we might need to update. We might be very lean on published controls. So we've used containers the way I normally recommend that they get used. We have a lot of work that we have already done for ourselves, really. So something that we care about is now finding all of these containers. So the way we have found components, we now want to find the equivalent container for each component. Now, again, this comes down to standards. So there's a few different things we could be doing. One of them will be, remember, like few things we could be doing means like few things, like few rules that we could establish, so that we can actually make use of, of the outcome. One of them will be that every component gets an extra message board that has a special name, and that message gets connected to the container so that you can do a graph inspection and get to it. The other thing, which is what we have been doing in so far, is you could rely on name matching, which we have been doing. So you will want to export the containering as well. Again, this is something that we've done. We were showing how to export things individually. So in our case, a name and replace is probably the best thing that we can do. Okay, so what is next? I will say that something that I would like for our tests is iterating all components. I feel... Do we have that? If we don't, we should. And by the way, if you were following the stream, you see me fix it. I was getting like really upset at this point. Well, not upset, but it was really bothering me that things weren't working. So, while between recordings, I fixed my situation. I just moved things where they belong. I've adjusted the script. It is as I suspected, which is the .m file that is used to find the site packages for Maya that I use. Was not being found because we're in a subdirectory, and without a restart or other things in play, like it wouldn't pick it up. So all I've done is move snippets where I originally wanted it anyway, before the whole directories thing that was not really a good thing anyway. So I'm gonna get, hopefully this is still readable. Chat, let me know if it's not. I assume it is. I do want to make myself a little bit more space. So I would like to iterate components, and iterating components is going to be very simple. You can only iterate components from a rig. So is control rig, okay. Now we do want some resilience. So technically here you can only have components under a rig, but we haven't really established that rule. But we do have a check that is trivial to know if something is a component, so we can run that now. Def iter component control rig mob. Rig mob will do. Naming things is art. So what we want is a shallow iterator, which is pretty much the same exact thing that we've done here. In fact, it's pretty much equivalent to these. So we can do a copy and paste the job. We just want to fix a couple things where we go. We want to check is control rig mob. You would expect it to be. If it is a control rig, then we would like to get the chow count. And for I range chow count, chow mob is going to be that. Chow mob if chow name ends with. So what we want to do here is we have a slightly better. Yes, do we need this thing? Because if this is a control rig, we only really care. Like, we don't need such an extensive check, right? So if chow name ends with component, we're gonna take the simple way out. Come on. Then you chow mob. Okay. So these should iterate components. I'm not gonna test something to, I'm not gonna test units. These finally. This is where TDD like cover all the units. Not gonna bother. So now that we have something that can iterate components, the next thing we want to do is, given a component, we want to find the equivalent container. Now, so probably I will say container from component. So the moment we have these semantics in play, we can change the guts of the function to respect new rules that we establish, and we'll still be good. So we're doing okay. So we want an assertion in here just in case. Do we want to? Yeah. Component mob equal, actually, it's component mob. Now what I don't remember is, do Python assertions require a message? Or is it optional? I don't remember. We'll find out. I'm gonna check. So documentation on the right. Assert condition error message. So okay. There's not a parenthesis, but it's not giving me an error in the linter. So the message is optional. It seems, let's try wait, and we'll see what happens. Actually, let's simplify. Whoa. So assert true, like I would expect these to be true. Assert false, or assertion. Some message. Okay, now the last thing we want to check is, can it take the parentheses? Because I find confusing that, yeah, no. Assertion is always true. Perhaps remove parentheses. So the parentheses in this case, like this is a statement, in this case are making no difference. Okay, whatever. Let us do as the documentation suggests. So we're asserting that this must be a component. Now the name substitution is gonna be so if it is a component, we know it ends with that. fn equals m2 and fn diagnode. It's so good to actually have auto completion again. Component mob. That's one, might need more than one. Component fn is that. Contact name is fn.name. Container name should be contact name trimmed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So is it -6? Like we can check it pretty quickly. Component tag name trimmed by -6. That should do us. So I would like that, and what do you call it? Container. Container. That seems legit to me. So I want a temporary selection. And then I want to add by name. That name should be unique. Now we'll talk about namespacing and things like that when the time will be right. Right now we assume that our authoring environment is one character at a time, which is why we're not namespacing these things. So we have to make the assumption that their name is unique, and if that assumption is untrue, then things break. I'm okay with that for now. And then I should be able to return, so dot get the pen node 0. So I don't super love these, but it's okay for now. So container from component should be working. We should be able to debug these. Let's give it a debug. Now, container from component is what we want to use. So get the pen node, okay. So let's try if is, what do we call this, nips? We can just print these right away for now. Not that we even need the print, but 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. It should be attached. So let's select a bunch of stuff. Attribute, that's fair enough. Object has no attribute, is container, is component is what I wanted in fact. Name container from component is not defined. Am I importing wrong? Container from component. Am I? No, I'm not. I do need to pass it something. Oh yeah, same thing. I need. Okay, it's halting. Remove all expressions, and I would like container name. God know them container. And does it get me? Could not redo my console. Whatever. I don't care about your my console. It did get an object, so I suspect that that works. Now the next thing we want to do is get all objects that are inside the component. So there is a MFN container. It's relatively recent and it got expanded a few times. If you're on Maya 2016, you might be in for a little bit of misery. 2017, I'm tempted to say, is when it started getting okay, and it's not gonna be like really knocking your socks off. And I think it's MFN container, and like the fact that they're called assets is, you know, sometimes super confusing, but MFN container, no. So container. Subsync container, no, MFN container node. Now, okay. I don't remember if you can look at the contents. It's not too bad if we can, because it's actually using, so get members actually works. And it returns an M object array, which is not too bad. We could be doing worse than that. So yeah, for now that's what we want really. Get parent container, we don't do recontainering like that. Get publish node, get root transform might be useful. We might want another assertion where we say, hey, the root transform is got to be the same as that. Like we could even do it. Like, let me explain what I'm talking about. So if, okay, container fn equals into mfn container node. You will hope that I can build that from this. Okay, so what we should be doing is assert that container mob has a fan om2 mfn dot k. Really? mfn? No, what? No love? mfn dot, okay. No constants? Really? I'm not loving these. mfn.mfn, like how many mfns can you possibly have? Let's not do it. I don't care. I don't feel the need to complicate things anyway. It probably does have all the constants I need and all of that, but it doesn't matter. So these will error anyway, as would an assertion if it's not a container. Then the assertion I could care about is container fn dot. What is your problem? Like, I mean, it was doing. Oh, I know what it is. Don't love that, but whatever. No, not what I thought it would have been. Also messy. Whatever. Get members, get root transform, and it should return an M object. Yep. So more checking basically. Get root transform, and we want to assert that the root transform is the same as the component mob. And if it's not true, component dot item and container don't link. That's a terrible message. Container root transform differs from originating component. Should probably log the names or something like that, but not while we're still writing this stuff. So okay. Once we do have that, container from component works. So return container mob. We could run it, make sure it works. Let's see if, oops, something doesn't work. We'll know soon enough. Error, assertion, error. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, but that's... Okay, no, so it is checking if his component. So let's attach again and let's see what's going on. Also, why? What? So it is now not attaching. Still erroring. Because the breakpoint is too late. Yeah, that's fair enough. It's failing long before. So what we got is component mob has got this address and component mob has got the same address, No, no, it doesn't. K transfer and K container. No, sorry, that's correct. So I'm just doing something stupid here. Get root transform, container FN, get root transform. Built-in method. Yes, I would like to see the result, but I can't. So I need to get it. Sorry, this is not a super entertaining part of the stream, I guess, but I don't know how much I can do to make these more entertaining. Let's make it not fail. That will be entertaining. So the root mob here is gonna be, let me get rid of that. I know I have them up top, but I don't want to get confused. Container mob, probably don't care about container mob all that much, but component mob. So, no, this is just gonna be confusing me. Remove this one. Okay, root mob. So this is a transform. Root mob is invalid. So what is possible is that get root transform. What do we have selected here? That makes sense. Maybe the God node one is improperly configured. That is very possible. God node M component. Don't love these. Show attribute editor tab for this node. I'm not sure why it will be invalid. It can only have one root transform, so get root transform should not have any argument. Otherwise, return an empty object. I don't like this, but I don't want to bother with it because it might be a Maya bug. We don't have time to investigate all of that. So for now, I'm going to get rid of it. Nah, just get rid of that branching code. Oops, I was like, what are you complaining about? For some reason, get root transform is, maybe it's root transform is not the same of the parent component. That's what it is. Anyway, so return the container mob. We don't need these. Don't need the breakpoint. Cut that line. Now, we want to iter container members. Contained. Because I know containering is a thing. So iter container iter component members from a component mob, which is what we'll work with. Let's keep that. So we want the container FN to come from container from component of the component mob. Then container FN dot get members. Wow, the auto completion thing is like better than before, but still not great. Get members should return an object array. Let's just make sure. I think I mentioned it moments ago. I was reading it. Get members, yes. Some duplication here, but we'll be okay. Members equals Now, what I don't remember off the top of my head, an object array probably doesn't have good iterators or anything like that. Maybe there is an there is an MIT object array probably. I don't know if it's in OM2, but I don't care anyway. So it's got append, clear, copy, insert, remove, set length, size, increment. Oh, this is one. I believe that this is one of those where they went Pythonic about it. So you can actually use length and you can get slices and settings like setting slices. That is actually pretty good because it has list semantics. Yeah, anyway. So what are you complaining? Unused variable container FN. I thought I was using it. You say I'm not, whatever. So yeah, we'll see. We shall see about it. For each member, remembers yield each member. It's getting somewhat phallic. Possibly. Either component members. So these should actually get us what we want. How far into are we? 41 minutes. And I reckon we're almost done. Sorry. No, I'm sort of like half forgetting what I'm doing. Iter component members from component mob. That is fine. So 4x in these just for the sake of doing stuff. Now these should do nothing. Oh, do I have a multiple selection? Oh, okay. Failure object does not exist. So that is kind of funky because this is something I've been talking about before. When you select these, yeah, you see how it selects the component and the container, which is super silly. I have never liked these because it can get super confusing. So what is actually happening here is that the selection is basically equivalent to these. And it's always driven me mental. So this is working, so it's getting all the members and it's fine. Now if I select multiple things, reloading, whatever, I select multiple things and none of them is a component. Let's see what happens. Will I get errors? No, I don't get errors. So that's cool. Now what is happening that is funky is when you have these selected, runtime error, object does not exist. That is so silly. So for these we have not set something, like maybe the selection transform none. Selection transform none. There's some slight difference. I'll need to look into it because I can't find like an obvious, like a super obvious difference. It doesn't matter. All right, so we got something. We got a few bugs or like unknowns coming from Maya, but we can get all members of a component. That is great. We got iterators. So the other thing about iterators is that you can very quickly convert them to list just by get the iterator and set it to list. So we can find if something is a control rig. We can find if something is a component. We can iterate the components. So either components from rig mob and then either component members. So our final test here, I will say, is the use of, let me make a note of these before I make a boo-boo. What I want to do is control rig, let me divide. Okay. What I want to do is is control rig on some mob, then if that I would like to for comp in either component might as well just use that. Just for the sake of debugging, this should print the crap ton of stuff, but for him in either, what would we say? Either component members. Either component members of comp. For now, just bring onto MFN dependency node, because we will have non-dag nodes. Is MFN dependency node? I think it is. We'll find out. Of m.name. I don't want to copy all, however. And I might miss a snips in there, it'll be okay. So, if he's control rig, please iterate the components and give me a comp. Then iterate the components to members for comp. Container selection is irritating, it's better to check with as a fan for K container. Yeah, it's what I was typing with the HasFN. It was not giving me the completion, and I don't want to look up the constants. There's a lot that could be strengthened. Right now I want to get to the point where by the end of it we can get all the members, so that the next time around we can do the export, or maybe even this time around, who knows. So next time around it will be a command. Now for, let's say for a rig selection, for a multiple selection in this case, for iron range select length, easy control rig, that seems okay. So not doing what we wanted to do, which I'm still okay with. Let's see. Is this working out for component in snips either component members comp? So it is failing somewhere. Let's place a few breakpoints. Now is these, so this is the difference. There you go. Either component members is not defined. There you go. No, not equals. Snips. Okay, that worked out well. So technically this should be like, we can write a bunch of things based on this, but technically this is not too bad. Now, what I'd like to do is test it with a bunch of multiple things. So something here like this is not working out. If snips is control rig mob, I would expect this to work, honestly. For yada yada, something is failing silently. So if I only run one, like, what is gonna happen? Unless I'm doing something stupid, I would expect. Let me try something. I'm gonna use print debugging in this case, because whatevs. I would expect this to print once, but it prints nothing. So his control rig seems to be failing instead of, you know, just not doing. His control rig return his name correctly, so I'm gonna run here. So with one multi-selection like that, and with the debugger attached, and with these collapsed away, do not, thank you. What are you gonna let me know that I don't know? So, is named correctly? False. Okay. So that has done what I would have expected it to do, right? Where you go like, yeah, it's not error, it's not done anything silly. If it's control rig, I mean, it's clearly working. Alright, whatever. Sorry, I'm like, this is just mystifying me right now. It's bothering me. Let me see. Am I missing something here? Is control rig mo? Oh, yes, of course I'm missing something. I'm stupid. I'm a complete idiot. It's always working on the first one. Could like nobody tells me these things. Why? It was patently obvious. Now, so for I in range selection lang is control rig cell get the pen node I. So I want to form mob in here because it's holding on to an old mob. Mob equals these. Let's see. There you go. Okay. So the issue was with our silly script. Cool. So we can now get all members, which means that what we want next is the export. So how long has it been? Yeah, that makes for a 50 minutes video. Like, if you have any questions, start posting them in chat, because I'm not gonna go much further than these. I think this is a good moment to call it. We fix all the silliness, we got snippets that work. You know, can work with that. Don't worry. It's the kind of stuff that just, because Maya, like, this one thing that I'm still on the fence about it, to be honest. Like, Maya keeps this whole thing like it's the same Python shell with the same variables and everything, which is a bit quicker all the time, right? So I deleted mob, you know, that stale mob, that one I caught instantly. And it still had a mob that was the last one that it fetched, so it would run and do nothing, right? It's really hard when you don't have a typo, so it stores something. The rest of your code does have a typo. You change things, you fix one typo, but move it somewhere else, whatever. Like, this whole thing with the environment being persistent is sometimes, like, when you run tests like that quick and dirty, it can get you into trouble. That's why I like the debugger, because you have a degree of certainty of like, oh, this is just not calling what I expected to. Now, beside that, something that XSI was doing is every time it will run fresh, which meant that it will take a little bit longer because it did have to start a Python instance basically, a part of it at least, but it prevented many mistakes. So I don't know which one I prefer. It's like pros and cons to each. I think that this is kind of fine as it is for now. So let me save that. Where were you? Here. I am using these. Still called Day046, but that does not matter. Still errors on this my API thing, but oh, this is tabbing error actually, which is bad. Oh, now it's not erroring on reload any longer. That's cool. It's saying snips is not used when it is, but again. All right. Now, this is a try except, so this should actually escalate one up, and these should be picking up snips as far as I know, but because try except contributes to this scope, it shouldn't be end the scope there. Anyway, doesn't matter. Cool. All right. So we got something in just over 3 hours. Set up the environment, fumbled about for like quite a while, and got everything we needed to be able to, from one node, find all of our members. Now the next thing for the export to work is going to be something that uses that selection, deparents that, and exports everything. And I have to decide how we will reference that, but that will be for the next time. So next time around, we're actually gonna do a manual export, see what we get, and decide on what we want for the referencing of a consumable. All right, that closes this one, which is the first stream in a row for me, like the third episode in a row for me, and now I'm gonna go to work. No questions in chat. Congratulations if you've made it this far. Like, this has been a 3 hours, 40-minute stream. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you the next time.